Welcome back to Turning Hard Times into Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm glad to have two friends of mine from the junior mining sector in Vancouver. These are friends that I've known for quite a few years. I'm talking about Eric Coffin and Scott Gibson. Eric's been on this show before, and his bio is posted at the Voice America Business Channel website. Eric is the editor of the HRA, that's Hard Rock Analyst family of publications, responsible for the financial analysis side of HRA. He's been with us quite a while over the years, and I should say that to learn more about Eric's service, go to hraadvisory.com, hraadvisory.com. Scott Gibson heads up Kidco Gibson Capital Corp. and Beneath the Surface Capital Corp. They are private investment firms focused on investing in micro and small cap exploration and mine development companies that develop precious metal, base metal, uranium, and rare earth metal properties. Scott identifies companies with strong growth potential and investment, and he invests in them at strategic junctures with the objective of earning significant returns on his investments. And I might add that you can go to KitcoGibson.com, Gibson.com to learn more about Scott. I might add also that Eric does much the same thing. And both of these gentlemen have been very successful over the years in picking some great stocks. And, of course, it really helps when we have the wind at our backs, as we seem to have for the precious metals stocks anyway right now. So it's really a pleasure to have both Scott and Eric with me. Thank you for joining me, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's really good.
For having us.
Really good to have both of you. And Scott, let me start out with you. You and Eric have headed up several of these metals investor forum events in the past. Can you tell our listeners what to expect, what they might expect there, and what is the purpose of holding these events?
Thanks, Jay, and thanks very much for having me on your program. Having known you for over 15 years and been involved in the markets that long, this is a real pleasure. The reason we started out the Metals Investor Forum, really the purpose behind it, is to bring together expert newsletter writers, predominantly their subscribers as an audience, and specific companies that were invited specifically by the newsletter writers. So just to go a little bit further on that, you mentioned in your introduction a few of the speakers that we're going to have at the conference, and they recommend a number of companies. And they have to specifically choose the companies that are going to exhibit based on not only are they under recommendation by their publication, but also that they believe there's something timely and the value proposition is there in terms of their stock, the share price, and the market cap, such that the audience should be exposed to that company. And then they invite their subscribers to come and attend. There's a few other people that also are invited to attend, like your listeners. And then the companies. That's what makes it different. Is it's really exclusive.
Yeah, that's very important, I think, because it's not just a matter of who has some money and can afford to make the trip and pay the fee to exhibit and tell their story, but it's companies that have to be favorites or companies that the newsletter writers believe in. I think that makes you different than a lot of the other investment forums or investment conferences that I've attended in the past. Eric, with the metals prices rebounding so far in 2016, can you talk a bit about the investor mood that you're sensing? You're up there in Vancouver, both of you guys are. You're probably in a position to feel the sense of this turn in the precious metals markets much more than I am here in New York, where precious metals doesn't mean much of anything to the Wall Street crowd for the most part. How are people feeling about this market, and how does the turnout look in terms of investors at this conference so far?
And I think it's fair to say there's probably been about a 180-degree shift in the last 3 months. Coming into this year, everybody being beaten up for 4 years in the worst bear market in history, really, for resource stocks. Mm-hmm. Some of us, you and I included, thought things were about to turn, and indeed they've started to. And we've had a nice move in the gold price, but you've really seen a change in the tenor of the market, and you've seen a lot more optimism. And one thing that's happened, my experience through a few of these cycles is this usually happens faster than people think it's going to. Is when you get one of these turns and enough of the players in the resource sector convince themselves that they're in a new bull market, whether or not they think there's going to be pullbacks is beside the point. When you get that sort of change in mindset, you start seeing the interest in the buying move down the food chain pretty quickly. And I've seen some really impressive percentage moves off admittedly horrible starting prices for a lot of it started with the producers, but it very quickly moved to developers and to sort of advanced exploration stories and drill plays. And one interesting note, and I think this gives me some comfort, I think, a lot of companies I've talked to that have been doing a lot of road shows throughout North America and Europe in the last month or so, they've all made the point to me that what's changed in their minds is the type of investor that is asking them to take meetings with them, the type of funds that are asking to sit down and do the due diligence in these companies. There's a lot of generalist funds talking to and trying to get into the sector now, which was absolutely not the case for the last 4 years. Outside of sort of hardcore gold funds and stuff, nobody wanted to hear about this. There's a huge amount of interest coming in from those, and that's a real sea change. And I think we're going to see that. We're seeing it in share prices already, but nothing goes straight up. We'll have corrections and stuff, but I think I'm quite comfortable with the concept that a new bull market, and perhaps a major one, has started in precious metal stocks, and we're seeing that. We're seeing that with the Metals Investors Forum. I mean, I can tell you, without being, we're a little bit coy about numbers because we tend to do what the airlines do, quite frankly, and overbook. But I can tell you that with a little more than a month to go before this, the RSVPs are running substantially higher than they were at the last one. And the last conference, I should note, we had to shut down the RSVP list before the conference started. We basically ran out of seats, and I think that's probably going to happen again and faster. So that's just sort of a word to the wise among your listeners. If you want to RSVP, we're happy to have you, but don't wait too long to do it.
Oh, good point. And so, listeners, you can go right to J. Taylor Media, click on the banner near the top at the right. Just click on the banner for this investor forum, and it's a 30-second sign up for it. So I would urge you to do that. As Eric was saying, it might go very fast. It certainly does seem good, Eric and Scott, both of you. I would say that in fact, new money coming in, and the general funds getting interested in the gold sector now, because the gold mining sector is such a small market cap if you take all the companies combined compared to the big markets the big New York markets, the global markets are just absolutely enormous. So a little bit of buying can really do wonders, not only for the metal but for the shares, especially for the shares. I was just saying, Michael Oliver was quoting looking at some of his statistics. With gold up a little bit, the gold shares are up. I think he was looking at one of the major ETFs up 65% or something so far this year. So it's quite a move. Scott, can you give us an idea of maybe some of the companies that are going to be there? Would you care to name any, or just give us a sense of what kind of companies? Are we looking at producers? Are we looking at juniors? Early stage juniors, advanced stage juniors, what kind of companies might investors expect there?
Well, we span a range of from early stage exploration all the way up to advanced near-term production. Sometimes we will even have production companies that exhibit. The kind of companies we'll have range from a group like First Mining Finance. Keith Neumeyer started this deal. Mm-hmm. Keith Neumeyer, First Majestic and First Quantum. And they've gone out and been aggressively buying gold deposits, gold in the ground over the last year or so, and they're up to about 9 million ounces of gold. They continue to aggressively buy more. And they're just pooling those assets, keeping it in the company, and plan on adding value to them further down the road once the gold price appreciates. So that's one end of the spectrum. The other end, say, is Silvercrest, a management team that sold a previous company off to a major, kept a number of the assets and some cash, and they went out and they're about to drill on some of those assets. And their stock has already moved from 15 cents to 70 cents.
Yes.
So there's a couple examples. Another one is West Red Lake, a stock that's been languishing for the last few years. Just recently came out with a resource calculation of almost 1.1 million ounces of gold in Red Lake District in Ontario. And they are drilling with Goldcorp on another potential Goldcorp lookalike potential discovery, and they already hit on one hole. So there's a cross-section of a few companies, First Mining Finance, Silvercrest, and West Red Lake, that will be attending our conference in the middle of May.
Yeah, and I believe, if I'm not, I think I'm correct on this, Eric. I think you indicated that Avino Silver is going to be there, perhaps.
Yeah, Avino Silver.
Avino Silver and Gold, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
And New Market Gold's going to be there.
Okay.
There's a couple of other guys that I know Brent's talking to, and I don't know for sure whether they've confirmed, but odds are there'll be 2 or 3 or 4 producers essentially, and 2 or 3 or 4 development level companies like Kamenak that are basically moving resources forward through feasibility, and then we intentionally have a selection of, there'll probably be half a dozen or so where what I would call drill speculations, because we're obviously in a market again that actually cares about those, which it didn't for 4 years. I mean, we're basically trying to give subscribers and resource stock investors what they want. Like, this is based on the way stocks are moving and what feedback we get from subscribers. We try to select a list of companies that lays out, here's some things that have some real near-term potential for big gains. Here's some other things we just think are undervalued where, it's no fire drill. You don't have to go buy it tomorrow, but, take your pick your poison. Do you want to go after one of these drill specs where there's going to be results soon, or do you want to accumulate something that looks cheap?